My first question for you is, what do you think your role is as a Chicano artist?
Oh gosh, my role is just like any artist, just to be honest in what you do. Paint as a painter, or I guess any artist would create with truth. So I feel that's my role as an artist who is Chicano, to paint my truth, paint my reality, live with conviction, compassion, integrity, all the things that make up a good person. I think you just put that into your work. Beyond culture, I think just something you should do as someone that creates.
And as a teacher at Metro, what do you think your role is as a teacher?
Metro State, well, I've been there 26 years, full-time and part-time. I'm a tenured professor there. And after 26 years, I come to the realization it's about giving students the leeway to find themselves, but at the same time, have some reins to kind of hold them in and guide as well. So it's kind of like a guide, and then teaching to me is nothing but sharing. So I'm just sharing my experience that I've had in my research and my own artwork, plus the experience I've had with previous students. It's really informed me to help others, after 26 years, because I've had some pretty tough experiences with students and some wonderful. Beyond the frustration, there's elation,
In your artist talk, you talked about sampling. So I was wondering if you could just explain that and describe what it means in your work. And
oh, sure. Yeah, that's one thing I as I gave this talk here a week or so ago about my work here and other work I've done, I was really surprised one day when I heard my daughter. I have two children. My daughter's now 33, but my daughter had her music on in her bedroom, and I walked by and I heard Stevie Wonder, but it was like into a rap song. So I knocked on her door and she opens the door, and I go, "That's Stevie Wonder," and she goes, "No, it's MC whoever, I don't remember who it was." But I go, "No, that's Stevie Wonder." She goes, "No, it's MC whoever, and I says, "No, it's Stevie Wonder." And so I went into my storage in the house, and I found an old Stevie Wonder album, and I put the album on, and I called her to listen, and that's when we, as a generational kind of connection. Like she goes, "Oh, I love that song," and then I love how it was sampled. So we're just talking about sampling, and then it made me realize I could be sampling imagery. Musicians sample songs, other people's songs. Why can't an artist sample some other artist's imagery? Or any image for that fact. It doesn't even have to be an artist. So I started sampling pretty much anything and everything was open, So that's kind of how it started. And I have those very early pieces from the 80s that I started doing that. Or maybe it was in the 90s. But it was really a wonderful connection, like music and art connection. So I'm glad I did it. The piece behind me is nothing but sampled.
Then would you say that your work has a cross-generational feel then? Do you feel that you're trying to connect part of your past with like your kids or generations today with your art?
I never even look at that. I never look like, this is my audience. I just do what I feel, do what I need. But there have been times where I've sent my work, or my work will be dropped off, or I'll drop it off at an art center, and then I go to the opening, and people meet me and they go, "Wow, I didn't know I thought you were a lot younger. I didn't know you were this age. I'm just shy of 60 years old." And they "Wow, I thought you were 25 or 30." And I says, "Well, I like the compliment. The work is more youthful and energetic, I'm guessing, or more current, or of today,
I really like A West Side Wedding, so I was wondering if you could explain maybe some of the significance of the subject matter in the print.
Okay.
And just maybe the choices that you made, with the sky, or just that kind of aspects of it.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. It totally makes sense. Well, I was baptized in that church at St. Cajetan, San Cayetano in 1956, shortly after my birth, of course, And it used to be a neighborhood. Well, the neighborhood was pretty much going to be totally torn down for urban renewal and for the Auraria campus where I teach, actually. And so it was more of like a memory. Like I did a painting, a couple of sketches and a painting of the same image around 1990. And that was like the 10th anniversary of my wife and I's anniversary, 10-year anniversary. So I thought I'd surprise her and put a wedding couple, because we were unable to be married at that church because it was deconsecrated. It was no longer an actual church. It's actually like an event center on campus. And so they built a new St. Cajetan's in Denver on West Alameda, and we got married there. And so 10 years later, I thought, wow, what a beautiful anniversary idea or gift to my wife and myself as well, to do a painting of ourselves being married in front of the church. Then I realized, well, a couple things. The campus was built with promises made to the families that lived in that neighborhood that were displaced. These families are displaced, right, and tear down their homes, and they were moved to build this campus. The promises made were to provide scholarships for any of the families living there, their children, for as long as generations go. They have a free education. And so I realized, well, I should put it more in one, a social comment that it's just my wife and I being married there and no people celebrating. Two, it's also like a dream because we never really did get married there. And so I left it more dreamlike, hence the stars and this kind of almost hazy kind of feel, one decorated car that there's no driver in, meaning, am I to be taken out or my wife to drive ourselves away? The painting, the church itself is painted very flat, like it's a facade, like almost a set in a play or something like that. And so that was kind of a dream, but yet a political statement as well, and a personal statement too.
And then I've heard you say that you love doing set design, and I was wondering if you can explain where this love comes from and how you decide like what sets you'll do, or like if there's like a way that you decide what to do for sets, or like how you'll do them.
Well, I got inspired by sets. I went with a friend of mine in college, an undergrad in like 1989. I went to New York, and on a shoestring, was able to get enough money for airfare and flew out, and then had a decent hotel and a little extra money to eat for like about a week, maybe 5 days. And my friend, his sister was into ballet, and we happened to be in Times Square and walked by a poster that had the dancer Nureyev, ballet dancer Nureyev, performing. And so he checked into it, and he's like coaxing me, like, come on, you got to see this. He says, I don't want to see a ballet, plus I don't have money. Well, let me check the matinee price. So he, I don't remember what it was. It could have been $20 or something, At that time, it was a lot of money for me, And so he helped me end up paying for it because he told me, you have to go see this. And I said, I want to see a ballet. And it's like, he goes, Picasso has created the sets. And I said, okay, that convinces me. Because I would love to see a Picasso painting in a set and come to life, right? And the costumes as well. So, go in and observe and watch and just this performance, this ballet, and just completely in awe. I mean, just blown away. I seen this Picasso painting, in a cubist manner, and the costumes are very cube. They were like headdresses that were, squared off and triangular, and they're in motion. Scenery, moving up, and they're striking this and that, and things moving in. It was just amazing. I told myself then and there, I would love to do something like this someday. Have one of my paintings come to life. You have the 3D, but here you have the 4D, fourth dimension, the element of time in like a painting coming to life. So that was like a seed planted for me. It was truly inspirational. And so years later, when I was able to quit the job I had, which is spray painting, I quit that job, and I promised the higher up, I said, I will commit to giving to my community, because I know my community is going to support me through selling of my artwork. So I started volunteering various organizations, schools and such, and I went to a local theater called El Centro Su Teatro, and this was probably the very late 80s, very early 90s, and I did my very first play. I actually went to the theater director, and I said, I'd like to do a set, to volunteer, and I even asked, like, how much budget do I have a set? And he goes, well, I don't know, we don't have much money at all. I could probably, if we can keep it under $100 to $60, and I'm like, that's like what it cost me to make a painting, So I was like, God, I got to come up with a set for like nothing, pretty much. So the play was called Bernabe, and if you ever have a chance to look that up, it's by Luis Valdez, and I believe Luis Valdez. But it's about this man that goes into this hole. He's not all there mentally, but it's about the womb and earth, and it was just a perfect play for me to begin with, because it was me, myself, as almost a birth, my first experience with a play, a set, creating a set, and I wanted to do it again and again, and I've done like 25 sets probably. The largest I did was at the Arvada Center for a children's play called And Now Miguel, and then I did a really quick fly-by-night thing at the Denver Center here downtown for a one-night thing. So, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it.
You kind of already answered this maybe a little, but do other artists, past or present, influence your work?
Oh yeah. Well, it goes both ways. Just as music has inspired me. My grandfather was a musician, a guitarist, and my uncles were guitarists. So music has been a big part of my life. I actually played drums as well, but I was inspired by like the performance artist James Luna, and I got to perform with him, on drums at the Denver Art Museum. But then there's visual artists. There's a piece I have in here based off of Andy Warhol's soup cans. There's a swimming pool piece I have here, and that was based off of Monet and the British painter David Hockney. And then sampling, as we talked earlier, it's just like all these influences from everywhere. I mean, I've actually been walking down the street, and I look down, and it's like a wrapper for, a gum wrapper, or, thrown, discarded wrapper for a popsicle or something like that. And it just has the strangest graphic or cartoon on it, and I'll actually pick it up, put it in my pocket, and possibly use it down the road. So I have a little box of just these odd, funky little imagery that I could take at any time and borrow. So yeah, I'm influenced by everyday life, really. And the nice thing, though, too, like I was probably one of the first to do these soup can, and put Mexican or native indigenous food on the label, and others have used it from California to wherever, and so it's nice to be inspiring to others as well.
Okay, and my final question is, how do you think the Chicano movement influenced your artwork over the years?
Oh man, that was a major impact. I mean, I'm getting chills right now because of my experience. I mean, I don't know where you were at 15 years old, or actually at 13, because I went to my very first demonstration on September 16th, 1969. I was 13 years old, and we had what were called walkouts. I experienced racism, my parents experienced racism. In the classroom, we would read books like, Mexicans were thieves on the border and murderers, and just the whole Mexican sentiment was almost like it is today with Donald Trump. We're getting these negative views of what our culture or background is. So I just went to this demonstration with a friend of mine out of a junior high school or middle school, and not knowing really what to expect. Here I'm 13, and I almost don't know what this is about. I just knew the Chicano movement is happening. I wanted to be a part of it and find out more. But when I got there, we were dropped off by a school bus in what is now lower downtown by the Coors Field. And we marched from lower downtown all the way up to the state capitol, up 15th Street to the Capitol. And there I saw like people, just like me, chanting in protest, carrying banners, demanding change, wanting change. So when I got to the Capitol, I heard all the speeches and reminding me, I come from a very strong cultural background, this history that's important as any other culture. We're all equal, And instead of us being put down, we need to change that attitude and move up the culture, and plus remind everyone we're all equal anyway. We're a human race, one people. So that alone just changed me to see so many people wanting change, and then to see the change happen, In talking to my parents, who are in their 80s now, they're still alive, and the experience they had, if I was my father, and he was, wanting to get a teaching position, as I have, I'm not sure if he would have even been able to even get the job back in those days when we had, before civil rights law passed, if he would even be able to get a teaching position as such, because of the inequality that occurred, So it's good to see the demonstration had manifest into something positive, So it totally, the one pivotal thing that affected my life, culturally and politically, Personally, it's meeting my wife. We've been married 35 years, So that's a big thing as well. But for the Chicano movement, it stressed family, education, equality, and so forth, So it definitely changed and affected my life.
That's good. I guess I have one more then. Do you think it's interesting then that like in a West Side Wedding, how you show St. Cajetan's, and that's like the neighborhood where Metro State is located? Do you think it's like kind of like a full circle thing that you teach there now, and that was like a neighborhood that is predominantly
it constantly boggles my mind, My grandmother, paternal grandmother, Lorencita Fresquez, Quintana Fresquez, her father was from the Isleta Pueblos in New Mexico, just south of Albuquerque. And the Pueblo people were sedentary people. They were native people that did not move around like the Cheyenne, Arapaho, the Crow, and any other native nations. They were nomadic people, where the Pueblo people, were static. They stood in one place, like in Taos Pueblos. They were like, over 1,000 years, and people are still living in the same, families are still living in those adobes, right? So coming from a history where they're not nomadic, I just find that connection personally. I see, baptized in this church, right? And then my parents move away from the neighborhood. I grew up in a completely other neighborhood, come to school at Metro State, and the church is there. Then I leave school, graduate, of course, go to grad school, start my family, and then I get invited to teach. Love teaching, so I stay on there. And of course, I get this tenure track position that I'm on, and I get hired. And now, 26 years later, I actually look out my window and I see the church just right out my window on campus. So just like the Pueblo people, I'm not very nomadic. I'm just meant to be there, It's just strange. It really is strange. It really is strange. But in a great way,
Okay, well, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Jason.
Yep.
It's really a pleasure.
Yeah, it was.